Today in Legally Us, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt's divorce may be close to being finalized, while a judge permanently dismissed a lawsuit brought against Netflix and Sofia Vergara. And Luis Rios is sued for computer hacking. We've got that plus so much more in today's Legally Us. Everyone, and welcome to Legally Us. I'm Christina. That's Nima Rahmani, President and CEO of West Coast Trial Lawyers. Hi, Nima. How are you?
Doing great, Christina. How about you?
Doing good. We got an update on a story that a lot of people in our audience were really interested in. It was the lawsuit brought against Netflix and Sofia Vergara for the streaming platform's new show, Griselda. And that case has been dismissed. So Michael Corleone Blanco, the son of the cocaine godmother, Griselda Blanco, and his wife, Marie, filed to dismiss the lawsuit with prejudice on February 9th in Miami. So this was according to the court documents. So Griselda's family had originally sued Netflix, Sofia, and other parties, alleging unauthorized use of the family's image, likeness, and or identity for the fictional dramatization of Griselda's story. Now, it's unclear if a settlement led to the lawsuit's dismissal, but would you say that that probably is what happened?
Christina, this was absolutely a settlement, and this is why. And you're right. The case got a ton of attention on Legally Us and Us Weekly social media. The reason I know it's a settlement is that the dismissal happened so quickly, because if there was a motion filed, they would need time for an opposition, maybe a reply, and then a hearing. And of course, the judge would need some time to issue a ruling. But the fact that it happened in a matter of days leads me to believe that the parties entered into a settlement. And that's why Blanco's children dismissed the case with prejudice, which means that they can't refile it.
Got it. So do you think that they probably got a large sum of money from both Netflix and Sofia?
I think the children had a viable claim with respect to their image and likeness. I don't think Blanco did, because she was newsworthy. And of course, any potential defamation case wouldn't apply because she's now passed away. But they may have had a case. And if you're Netflix, and certainly the fact that Sofia Vergara got sued personally, they probably wanted to make this go away. They're a pretty big company, so probably made a payment. I don't know how much that payment was, but certainly enough for the children to dismiss the case and do it pretty quickly.
Right. Well, you said when we previously spoke about this that the children did have a pretty good case going forward with this. So that's probably why maybe Netflix wanted to, wipe their hands of it.
I think so, because obviously there's First Amendment protections, and we've talked about it. If you're newsworthy, there's a lot less protection for you. And we talked about it in the Johnny Depp context, for instance, right? Obviously, he won his defamation case, but because he's a public figure, he had to meet a higher standard. He had to prove malice. But there are more privacy protections available for ordinary people. And, I'm not saying there's nothing special about Griselda Blanco's children, but they're certainly not public figures. They're not in the limelight. And that same newsworthiness protection from Netflix didn't necessarily apply to them. So to the extent that they're talking about Blanco's children, they really do have to compensate them for that, because they may be infringing on those privacy rights. So they probably realized, look, sometimes it's better to settle the case quickly. We've seen it with Diddy and others, rather than unnecessarily drag it on, especially if there's a possibility that you may lose.
Definitely. All right, moving on over to Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. According to court documents, they are serving their final financial disclosures on the other party, which is pretty noteworthy considering there hasn't been much movement on their divorce case. This has been going on for like 7 years. It's kind of crazy. So the final terms of any overall settlement of the divorce haven't been filed yet, but the recent filings indicate that one of the most legendary marriages and divorces in Hollywood may be coming to an end. So exactly what does this mean? And do you foresee maybe this is the final stage in all of this?
Christina, I do believe that this is the beginning of the end for Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. And this is why whenever there's a divorce proceeding here in California, one of the first things that has to happen after the parties are served is they need to make financial disclosures to one another to identify their assets, their liabilities, income, and so forth. So the judge can decide what a fair and equitable distribution of the assets are, and any spousal support or child support that needs to be paid. So now that the parties are disclosing this information, and they have to do so truthfully, that leads me to believe that maybe finally this divorce is going to be finalized.
Finally. I mean, what has been the holdup in, going forward? Because I believe that they hashed out the custody a while ago, but this is still just the divorce of their marital assets, I guess.
Yeah, so the custody is one part of a divorce proceeding, of course, and we've been covering this for years, really, on Legally Us. And there were some nasty allegations of abuse. We would cover those. Obviously, Miramar, their chateau, that was a subject of dispute, even though it was really sort of separate from the divorce. So there's a lot going on here. Really bad blood between Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. And we've seen these divorces get very nasty. Angelina went after the arbitrator or the private judge that the two agreed to. So there's a sort of unrelated litigation. There's some criminal complaints to the FBI and so forth. And I think that's what really sort of put the standard divorce on hold. Now that those other issues have been more or less resolved, I think the divorce can move forward.
Definitely. All right. And finally, Teresa Giudice's husband, Louis, and private investigator Bo Dietl are being sued for allegedly hacking computers for harassment and abuse against Vanessa Reiser, an ex-fiance of the Real Housewives of New Jersey star. So according to court documents, Louis and Bo Dietl and a group of lawyers are being sued by a separate group of New York-based attorneys who claim that the duo illegally accessed sensitive information in their system to dig up dirt on one of the Bravo celebrities' previous lovers who is unnamed in the suit. So the lawyers allege in their suit that Louis and his group did so with criminal, reckless, malicious, fraudulent intent devised to defraud the plaintiffs and cover up their own misdeeds related to their efforts as attorney-client private investigators to hire sleuths to illegally ascertain personal details about her. So this, I feel like we've talked about Louis in the past when it comes to like computer hacking and things like this, but this seems to be on a whole other level.
Yeah, these allegations are pretty serious. We have talked about Louis and, the placement of individuals to try to get information. And, we've previously said, well, if someone poses as a friend or a patient, then, maybe that's okay. But you certainly can't hack into someone's computer, access their email or social media. That's unlawful. We've covered this before with, obviously, Prince Harry and the hacking there in the UK, but it doesn't matter what country you're in. This is unlawful if the allegations are true. And if, Teresa and others can prove that, then they're entitled to money damages.
So if you are found guilty of computer hacking too, is there any jail time that has to go with that? Or is it mostly just a monetary settlement?
It could be jail time. And there's different types of cases. And sometimes the case is a civil and a criminal case, assault and battery, for instance. You might go to jail or prison, but you could be sued civilly. And this is one of those types of cases. Computer hacking, it's a state crime, it's a federal crime, and it's also a civil cause of action. So this might be the type of case that, if the allegations are proven true, then prosecutors might get involved and go after the responsible parties as well, especially if they're lawyers. Lawyers are really held to a higher standard. You're supposed to be following the law, not breaking the law. Now, I'm not saying any of this is true, but if it is, I would fully expect prosecutors and even the state bar to get involved.
Right. And what happens to Bo Dietl? He is a private investigator. His name was brought up a lot last season on The Real Housewives of New Jersey because a lot of the other cast members also accused Louis of tapping into phones, calling, their children at their place of business. So it seems like, there's even some evidence on The Real Housewives of New Jersey. Can that be used against him as well?
Potentially, yes. And there's certain things investigators can do, but there's a line, so we're talking about, wiretapping, for instance. Right. When I was a prosecutor, if I want to get a wiretap, I needed to go to a judge, submit a, search warrant, a wiretap application, and get the judge to sign off. And there's even restrictions on what you can do there. You can't listen to irrelevant conversations or privileged conversations with one's lawyers. But it's not something that an investigator can do on his or her own. This is something you need court approval for. Now, that's something that's unlawful, but, potentially placing a call to someone and identifying who you are, that's not unlawful. So it really depends on what specific actions were taken by Bo and his team. And some of them may be lawful and others may not.
I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens to Louis there, but it probably wouldn't want to be in his shoes right now. All right. Well, Nima, thank you so much as always. Lots of big stories that we covered this week.
Of course, Christina, thanks for having me, and I'll see you next week.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.